Welcome to Ratio Scale Modelling. This is part 5 of Revell's Vasa. Scale is 1 to 150. In this part I'm going to be concentrating on the main deck Canons. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. To begin with, I'm painting the carriages, and it's Revell Aquacolor 314 beige for this base colour. And while they're drying, I'm just placing on a couple of little bits and pieces that go on the side of the hull. I'm not exactly sure what these parts are actually called, but they're part of the stabilisation and tying off process for the rigging. Once that was done, I went back to the painting on the cannon holders, or carriage as I should say, and I'm using Revell Aquacolor 87F brown, and that's for the wheels of the carriage. For the cannons himself, it's Revell Aquacolor 95 bronze. And once all the paint was dry, it's just a matter of placing the cannon onto the carriage like so. Now there's a set of 3 that I have to build up here, from a larger to a smaller barrel of cannon. So you can see the difference there. Before I place the cannons on, I'm using Revell Aquacolor 87F brown, and I'm going over the grates that I painted in the previous video to take away that green shine that was coming through. And I think they look a lot better now. I'm adding a little dot of Mr. Hobby 02 gloss black just at the tip of the barrel of the gun. And once that was done, I was able to start putting the cannons in. Each one has its own little hole to go through. Some of the holes were quite tight and needed to be pushed through a little bit firmly. The barrels came off the mount on some of them, so they had to be reattached. But I left some of them purposely loose after that because I still had a little bit of work to do on the actual cannon itself. For the next part, the instructions don't ask you to do this and don't suggest it at all. But I'm placing in the recoil lines that the cannon has. And this is just a simple rope that stops the cannons from shooting backwards once they're fired. So I'm just going to be cutting off small lengths of rope here from my stores I have for rigging. Once the rope was cut, it was simple case of adding a little bit of glue to the end of the rope and placing it on next to the cannon. Now in reality they should be secured with a little dead-eye, a little screw dead-eye that goes into the hull, but I don't have any, and also the kit doesn't supply them because they didn't say it's a necessary step. So once each one was secured to the hull, I took a little bit of white glue and placed it underneath the cannon and the carriage, so the little gap in between, and gently pulled the rope through in between that, then let it set. Now this is a time-consuming process. Each step I have to wait until the glue is thoroughly dry and the rope is not going to go anywhere once I go on to the next step. And it's essential that I do it step by step and not try to do it in one go, because I would never get it all to fit into place. It's difficult enough to get them to fit in place doing it step by step than doing it all in one go. So if you are going to attempt something like this, just make sure that you've got enough time in your schedule to do it, because it will take hours to do. And the final step is a mirror of the first step. So I'm taking the end and securing it to the actual hull itself. And in this instant, I'm using a little bit of super glue, just the barest amount onto the hull, then pushing the rope onto the hull and leaving it to set and dry. I will trim it up as it dries, but I'll leave a little rat tail hanging loose just in case I need to position it somewhere else. It just gives you a little bit of leeway while you're working on the kit if you need to reposition the rope. Once everything's in place, it's just a simple matter of snipping it off with your craft knife, and it's no problem solver. But I would suggest just leaving a centimetre, maybe a couple of centimetres of tail end loose, because you never know, you may have to incorporate that into something else. And while I'm waiting for everything to set on the Canons, it's a good time to start painting the covers for the Canons. So the base colour is going to be the paint mix of Revell Aquacolor 89 Beige 80% and Revell Aquacolor 381 Brown Silk 20%. And that's the same colour that I used to paint the hull. And now the rope is dry, so I'm just cutting off the main excess of the rope using my knife there. As I said, I'm leaving a little bit of a rat tail just in case I need it for something else. But you can see them all coming off now and how it should look. And once the everything is cut off and trimmed up as much as I want it to, the next stage is to put in these holding pins. These are for the rigging that helps tie up the rigging. There's various ones to place in. Each one has its own location point. Now, in the instructions for this kit, it tells you to put these in before you place in the cannons. No matter what ship you build and what kit you do, I always say if it's got deck cannons and so forth on it, put these in afterwards because you need a little bit of room to manoeuvre while putting in the cannons. It just makes some more sense to me. Each instruction in kit I've done has always said place these in first, then the cannons. As I said, I prefer to do them the other way around. So once they're in, it's time to put on some of the guardrails for the mast, which I'm placing on now. And the majority of the deck furniture is 87 F Brown by Revell Aquacolor. If you're wondering about what the ship is sitting on, this is a little jig I made up years ago, and it's just a bit of plyboard with two buttons running down, glued on, and the groove, the keel of the ship just sits in there while you can work on it, so it creates a stable base. Next is the main anchor wheel to build up the capstan, and there's two handles just sandwiched together. They're offset from each side, so when you look down on it, you see all the spokes of the handle coming out, and that gets placed on its mount, and it's just all one single unit that goes on top of each other, and that gets placed in the central part here. Now each of these parts as well, location points, they're half crescent, the mountain, the actual location itself, I should say. So you can't get them the wrong way around. They can only go in one way. It's back to the cannon covers, and the inside of these covers, the main colour is Revell Aquacolor 31 Fiery Red, and that's only for the inner framework of the actual cover themselves. I'm now using Revell Aquacolor 94 Gold. This is for the little motif that's on the inside of the covers. It's like a lion's head. Now, if you haven't got your lower cannon showing, of course, you wouldn't have to paint this much detail in. Because I've got my cannon ports open, I do actually have to paint all this. There's quite a few to do as well. And lastly, I'm using Revell Aquacolor 95 Bronze once more, and this is for the stir work on the outside of the cover. Now, because I've got these cannon ports open, you don't necessarily see much of this detail, but you can just about see a little bit depending what angle you're looking at the model. So it's better to paint them in. So all that's left to do now is to attach the covers. The lower ones, there's one that it doesn't have a cannon going through. I did manage to lose one cannon as well, so I'm going to close up that cover. It doesn't really matter as long as I've got the cover. Each one does have its own location point, and it's designed in such a way that they can sit flush or in the open position. So as I'm doing this is where I'll end part 5. There's quite a lot of processes still to come on the build, of course, but this was one of the main processes, putting the cannon covers on. and setting in the Canons, of course. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds? If you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and you'll be kept up to date with all my upcoming builds, including this one. Hit that like button. Don't forget to leave a comment, and of course you can share the channel. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.